How you choose to frame any experience is your choice. As people, we are meaning-making machines, and the meaning we give to events determines who we are, it determines our identity, it determines how successful we can be. So 2020 was a big year for a lot of people, and a lot of people have given a negative meaning to that. There's a great book by Carol Dweck. She was a Stanford psychologist, and her book is called Mindset. She talks about how there's people with a fixed mindset and people with a growth mindset. People with a growth mindset give a different type of meaning to their experiences than people with a fixed mindset. People with a growth mindset say, this happened for me, whereas people with a fixed mindset say, this happened to me. So if you have a fixed mindset, you give negative meaning to former experiences. You give a negative meaning to 2020. You say, why did all this happen to me? If you have a growth mindset, you look for the ways in which this experience could be positive and beneficial for you. Now, in this video, I'm going to talk about proactively framing 2020 as a positive experience. Now, before I do that, I want to actually share with you a quote. This is a crazy, mind-blowing quote from a psychologist named Brent Slife. And basically in this quote, what he explains is that our memories are flexible. Your past is just a story. It's a subjective meaning. There is no objective past that you have. There is no objective 2020. You get to choose the meaning you gave to 2020. And basically, this is what Brent Slife said. He says, our view of the past is shaped by where we're at in the present. It's actually the present that determines the meaning of the past. The past is not what determines what happens in the present. It's actually where you're at in the present, your mental set, your vision, how you see things. Your present determines the meaning of the past, and it's all about meaning. Your past is possibility, meaning you can change the meaning. You can give it whatever meaning you want. And so I'm going to give you an amazing journal exercise that will help you frame 2020 in a very positive way. Before I do that, though, I want to share with you this concept. It's called The Gap and the Gain by Dan Sullivan. This is a book you can get. The link is down below. It's a free ebook. Dan Sullivan is the founder of Strategic Coach. He has coached more successful entrepreneurs than anyone on the planet. And what he says is that if you're in the gap, what that means is that you're measuring yourself against some ideal. So, for example, when my kids are served dinner, I've got 6 kids. When my wife serves them dinner, if they get to the kitchen table and they say, oh, it's not what I wanted, then what they're doing is they're measuring what's there against some ideal that doesn't exist. We do that all the time. So if you're measuring 2020 against some ideal that doesn't exist, then you're going to be in the gap. Oh, it was a bad year. It wasn't what I wanted. Boo-hoo. You're like my kids at the kitchen table. Or you can measure the gain. You can measure your current situation against where you were before. If my kids come to the kitchen table and they realize there's a meal on the table versus before that they didn't have a meal on the table, then they just made progress. They just made a gain. And you can appreciate what you've got when you're in the gain, as Dan Sullivan explains. And so you are in the gain when you measure your current self against where you were before. You measure your current self against where you were before. And so one of the things I want to invite you to do is look at where you were at as a person and your situation at the beginning of 2020. So basically, it could be sometime in December of 2019. You didn't know all this was going to happen, but just write down in your journal all the things that have changed in your life since the beginning of 2020. I made the list. It was crazy how much I actually did this year. This year, I went on over 300 podcasts. I published 2 books. We had our 6th child. I got a ton of book deals. I also had a lot of setbacks, a lot of unexpected setbacks. Got crazy back pain and knee pain out of nowhere, which is probably mostly just subconscious. So there's a lot of things that have happened, good and bad, but I can honestly tell you I'm a different person than who I was a year ago. And you're a different person as well. There's 2 great quotes on this. One comes from Ernest Hemingway, the famous novelist. He said, nobility is not about being better than other people. True nobility is about being superior to your former self. So you need to take the time to actually reflect on how different you are from your current self. Write down all the things that have happened, all the things you've learned, and all the ways in which you're different from the person before. So write down all of 2020, what all happened. There's another great quote from Alain de Botton, the British philosopher. He said, anyone who is not embarrassed by who they were 12 months ago didn't learn enough. And so I heavily challenge you right now, at the end of this year, and honestly do this at the end of any year, or even at the end of every week or every month, to write down everything that has happened. Write down all the ways in which your life has changed in the last 12 months. And then choose to frame it as a positive year. You're a meaning-making machine. You get to choose whether 2020 was a good year or a bad year. It's your choice how you frame it. There's no objective facts. It's just a meaning. It's a story. The past has possibility, as Brent Slife would say, my famous, amazing psychologist, professor. So your past is a meaning. It's a story, whatever you tell about it. If you take the time to measure all the progress, all the gains, and if you reflect on how your life has changed and improved since the beginning of 2020, then you're in what Dan would call the gain. And if you're in the gain, then your life is going to be positive regardless of what happened. If you're in the gap, then you're always comparing yourself against some ideal that doesn't exist, which will never exist, because wherever you are, your ideal is off on the horizon. So you might as well be in the gain. You might as well frame 2020 as an amazing year. That's my invitation to you. Have an amazing day.